Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Running in Circles podcast. In today's episode, we talk about the rise of streaming services and how we've come to such a stage where we have a new streaming service releasing almost every year. Joining me in this conversation are two of my friends, Nikhil and Vishnu.
Hi, Pallav. Thank you for having us.
Hey Pallav, good to be back.
Hello. All right. So to start off the discussion, what do you think gave rise to like streaming services in general? Starting with you, Vishnu.
Yeah, I think what gave rise to streaming services is the increase in internet speeds at the time Netflix launched its streaming services, and also the customer market, which had the potential because they were increasingly renting videos and they would probably love something like an online streaming service. And obviously, at the time Netflix launched it, it was just an experiment, but it blew up into something that is so commonplace today.
Hmm. All right. So what do you think about it, Nikhil?
Yeah, I completely agree with Vishnu. It's you know from when you look at the sort of progress in tech from like early 2000s to like 2010s and what we have right now, it's the speed of internet communication has increased drastically, right? We went from dial-up to you
Hmm.
know um, like 1 megabit per second broadband to like now we've got gigabit and even faster,
Yeah. Yeah.
which allowed streaming of like high definition content.
Yeah.
And with the sort of change in tech where hard copies of videos or like video games like CDs and stuff went out of when it became out of date.
Demand. Yeah.
Streaming, yeah, exactly. So streaming services were the obvious progression from like DVDs and Blu-ray discs,
Hmm.
for the purpose of consuming content. And
Hmm.
it's Netflix was just one of the first to this new market, and they
Yeah.
actually their growth is a result of being first to the market more than
Hmm.
actually being the sort of
The
best.
best one. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's mostly because of uh, the development of internet communication.
Hmm. All right. What you guys said is absolutely true, but I also think that um, like this industry arose because of like as an alternate to, let's say, cable. Now when people got more and more busy with their lives, when cable used to show a particular picture only at a particular time slot, right? And people used to do a lot of movie rentals and other things. Blockbuster was among them. So that was one thing. But then as the internet came on, and with what streaming offered was something unique, which was that you could watch the movie that you want at any time you want. And that sort of expanded all over the world. And that's when Blockbuster also went out of business, I think. Uh, so so yeah, it made, with the combination of internet and with the um, the change in consumer behavior with respect to streaming, these two things sort of gave rise to Netflix and all of that. So the next question that I'd like to ask is, why do you like? How do you think there are so many streaming services available right now, Vishnu?
It's obvious, isn't it? Like everyone these days, do you know a person who doesn't use streaming services? So everyone wanted a piece of the cake. So as viewership is moving to streaming services, people kind of just wanted to start their own streaming services too. So and also it makes sense for huge studios like Disney, HBO to air their own shows on their own platforms because people aren't watching it on TV anymore. And like Amazon, Netflix, they have to buy rights to get these shows onto their platforms, but they don't need to. But I know one could argue that Netflix makes their own shows and that, but
Hmm.
they're relatively new compared to these established studios. You can't compare a Netflix show that recently released to the nostalgic effect of, say, Lion King on Disney, you
Hmm.
know. So That's what I think.
Nikhil.
Yeah, Vishnu's got a point because it all goes back to the success of Netflix, right? And not only was Netflix a new a sort of revolution in the fact that they were using the internet to deliver content, but also it was a revolution on their business model, right? It was
Hmm.
the content previously was sold sort of like in individual units where you get a DVD, it's yours for life, but it's like 20 US dollars or something around that. And I guess you could own it forever, but it's like, does most people are going to watch an episode or a movie once, right? It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to buy something and keep it for a long time. So the
Hmm.
subscription model, you know, Netflix pioneered that, right? And in the
Yeah.
beginning, I'm sure all these big studios like, Disney, HBO, and stuff, they would have thought, okay, yeah, see, most of their revenue comes from like,
Us.
yeah, no, but mostly it comes from like the theaters, right? From
Yeah.
actual movie releases and not so much from DVD or Blu-ray sales. So they
Hmm.
thought, once the movie's out of theaters, they're not really making much money out of it anyway,
Yeah.
and this is like a new experiment, so let's just license it out to them. uh, and yeah, who cares if they make money or not, as long as we're getting our license fees, right? And
Hmm.
it must have been more, I don't think they bet on Netflix's success when it first started off, but when they saw how big Netflix grew, they realized, like Vishnu said, they want to slice that cake too. And so
Hmm.
they pulled their licenses and they've all started their own streaming services.
Yeah. Yeah, even I think that too. I don't think there's like an alternate side as to why there are so many streaming services, because Netflix, I think they had like 180 million global subscribers like 2 years back, I think. And then 180 million is a lot, right? And once when the movie studios realized that Netflix is basically making money from the content that they are providing, and let's say, yeah, Disney, let's take Disney for example. So they make their money through, obviously, um, theaters and merchandise and parks and all that. But a Disney movie means a lot more, because like they've had at least one movie in the $1 billion, which makes $1 billion at the box office every year since like 2015. So one, and plus they also have like 50-40 years of original movies which they are giving to Netflix. But now if let's say they start their own streaming service, it can actually draw much more consumers, and they can actually challenge Netflix. So this is about movie studios. Now also, if you would have noticed, there are other streaming services like Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus, which are not movie studios, but they still want a piece of that cake, because it just adds on to your business, right? Like, the main aim for Prime Video isn't, um, let's say, to support Amazon. The main aim for Prime is, subscribe to the service, and then you can get your delivery within 1 day or 2 days. So I think as a secondary business also, streaming service works, and that's what Apple and Amazon are doing. So yeah, so there are so many streaming services. So moving on, how do you think OTT services have changed our viewing patterns, Vishnu?
So with moving into OTT platforms introduced binge watching a lot more. Maybe people did it in the past when TV channels ran TV show marathons on a Sunday or on a public holiday or something. But now it is easier to binge watch on any day you want to. And that probably reduces productivity and stops people from doing important things that they should probably do. And I mean, that comes down to the willpower of the individual too, right? So there are people who appreciate streaming services more. uh, I mean, which could help improve their viewing patterns, which is to watch whenever they want during the day, rather than having to clear out their schedule just to watch a show they really want to watch because it only airs at a particular time on a particular channel. Yeah.
Hmm. Nikhil?
Yeah, what Vishnu said is right, but that's more of a, an individual sort of thing. Depends on the person, like he said. I think another significant change is we've started looking at the smaller players a lot more, right?
Hmm.
If you had to, if you had to buy like a movie or you had to rent it, you're more likely gonna choose something that's identifiable, that is a good option, and you'd probably stick to the big players and like the big famous movies. But with
Hmm.
the subscription model, you have like Netflix. They have the big movies and the big TV shows, sure, but
Hmm.
you also have like the smaller, less production value shows, which are equally good in terms of the content quality.
Yeah.
But because it's available for free, you're already on the platform, all you have to do is click and you can watch it. People
Hmm.
have started experimenting and go moving out of their comfort zone a lot more, which has actually, I think, which is it's a good thing for the entertainment industry, just because you have a lot more smaller players and indie studios coming out and making content. And yeah, it probably they won't make as much money as they would in the box office, but selling it to Netflix or selling it to another streaming service is the
Hmm.
only way their content gets viewed and they can
Yeah.
grow much bigger.
Absolutely. So coming to how OTTs have changed our viewing patterns, there are two ways of viewing, right? One is the traditional way, which is weekly episode. Like for a series, you have weekly releases, and the other way is the Netflix way, which is put everything at once and let people watch it according to their own times and let them finish it if they want to in a single day. So I feel that um, there are pros and cons to both of these. The pros of binging is obviously you don't have to wait for so long. You can just finish everything in one sitting. But the cons of it um, is probably let's say you put everything at once. After a week or 2 weeks, people aren't going to talk much about the show, and that is the benefit that comes with the traditional release of weekly episodic releases. So let's take two shows. One is Stranger Things and Mandalorian, for example. So I read somewhere that Stranger Things, once it was released, it wasn't the number one stream show after 2 weeks. Mandalorian, on the other hand, like it had like 10 episodes or 8 episodes, I'm not sure. But when when the shows were coming out weekly, it was the most streamed show for those 8 to 10 consecutive weeks. And basically, people are more talking about the show on a regular basis if you release it like weekly. All right. So we'll move on to the last.
Let's be honest, you
Yeah.
know from an end user perspective,
Hmm.
everyone wants to binge, right? We don't care about
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
weekly
mean,
releases. I personally don't. I absolutely
yeah,
hate them.
that wait is something you don't want to, but I mean that there are good. I mean, if you want like to if you
The
want to have like a surprise element, then the uh, weekly release is probably good for you. But yeah, binging is also good.
I guess another factor there would also be spoilers, right? If it's a weekly release,
Yeah.
there's a larger chance that people can watch it on time and make sure that the show isn't spoiled for them. Whereas not everyone will have the same sort of free time,
Hmm.
I
and
mean, but
they
with
might end up having this.
Yeah.
even with releasing all the episodes at the same time, I'm pretty sure there'll be that one dude who watches it overnight and just spoils it for everyone in the morning, if
Yeah.
that's possible.
Exactly.
Especially
Yeah,
for
that's
like.
probably the only.
Yeah, but like I definitely agree with you. I'd rather have everything there, and I want to binge that season rather than having to wait every week.
Yeah. Also, like let's take Mandalorian for example. It is 10 episodes, so that's roughly 5 hours. I'm assuming. So now I'm sure that there would be some important plot point in like the first two episodes and like the final two episodes. So I'm sure like that would be something that you don't want to miss out on, and somebody just spoils that for you. So yeah, so for series, it depends like whether you want to take a binge path or the weekly path.
Hmm.
All right then. So we'll move on to the final segment, which is now that the pandemic uh, has only boosted the industry because theaters aren't open and most of the films are getting released on OTT platforms. Where do you see this industry heading towards, and which streaming service do you think will come out as leader?
Okay. So first thing that came to people's mind when streaming platforms were out was, oh, so much content to watch, and we can, like, there's a lot, and I don't have to pay for different channels to watch it.
Mm,
And now there are so many streaming services, and everyone's pulling content towards their own streaming services.
mm,
And like I said, initially Netflix had content from all studios buying stuff, and
mm, mm,
they
mm.
didn't really care. So now they're pulling their content out. Like, for
Yeah.
example, I think maybe 2 weeks ago or maybe last month, I'm not entirely sure, Peacock pulled uh, The Office from Netflix in the
Mm,
US. So
yeah. Yeah.
that is
Even.
something people are doing now, and they're
Yeah.
fighting for viewership again, which is
Mm,
essentially what TV channels did.
yeah. So it's like
So
cable all over again.
yeah, so this is heading into something like that. So eventually nobody is a big winner. That's how cable was, right? Everyone
Mm,
would get everything. And
mm,
uh, I mean, in the near future, at least I know Netflix is still going to be ahead, but I
mm,
don't know, like, maybe looking far into the future, we'd run into a cable situation again,
mm,
having to subscribe to multiple things. I'm pretty sure all of us already do subscribe to multiple things, but it's going to, hopefully it doesn't end up like subscribing to, like, go
mm.
over 25 things.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
services do you subscribe to, Vishnu?
I subscribe to Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hotstar, and Sony Live, just for sports, Sony Live.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
What about you, Nikhil?
I have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have Amazon Prime because it is because not because of like viewing something, but because of the benefits associated with Amazon. And I also have Disney plus Hotstar for India, all India matches and Formula One and other things like that. So yeah, I mean, here only in this conversation we have so many different services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
also
yeah.
steal my friend's Netflix. Sorry, my friend's Disney Plus. Disney Plus is nice because they let you simultaneously view on 4 screens. I believe Netflix is pretty stingy that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So about the question which I asked, where do you see the industry heading towards, Nikhil?
I think there are two, um, important factors at play. One, who's going to come out on top. I don't think there's going to be anyone coming out on top. I think we're going to move to a very fragmented sort of industry when it comes to streaming.
Mm,
Anyone who makes, at least a significant selection of original content will want to make their own streaming services to sell it,
mm,
just like we're seeing with HBO, Disney Plus, and so on. So we're going to move to a more fragmented um, sort of scenario in the market. And I think the selling points of each of these streaming services, instead of being, hey, we have the most licensed content more
mm,
than the other guys, it's going to be more like, hey, we have better original content, right? Netflix, I think, has been, if you've paid attention to the newer Netflix shows that are coming in, they've moved on from getting licenses for all these movies or TV
movies,
shows,
too original.
and yeah, exactly. They've focused on building their sort of studio and making original content, and they're doing pretty well, I think. But
Mm,
that's so. If we're sort of looking at that angle, I think Disney is too big to fail, right? They
yeah.
they have too much content. They've bought many studios.
Mm,
They have all the sci-fi content, which I think, unlike the past where that was uh, it was sort of isolated to a particular group of people. I think sci-fi is being accepted by a wider range of audiences. So, because Disney Plus, they have like the huge franchises like Marvel, Star Wars,
mm.
and stuff like that.
Pixar.
Um, yeah, exactly. They've got everything. So, and the thing is, their content is fit for people of all ages, right? Disney
Yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
you know, a kid, a really small toddler, to even like an old person can enjoy the content on Disney Plus. Whereas I think Netflix is more suited to a young adult slash youth sort of audience. So
Hmm.
you know, if I were to bet my money on something, it's probably going to be Disney Plus because they're just too big to fail.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the same because although Netflix is like the biggest player in terms of like uh, market share, I doubt it can sustain itself because although it has so many consumers, the amount of content which they make every week is not proportional to the revenue they make. So they're spending a lot, but their revenue is not coming in. So they'll have to find a sweet spot somewhere of whether to like increase the subscription charges or whether they can think of adopting a weekly service model. But coming to Amazon Prime will be sustainable, obviously, because it's not the primary source of income for Amazon, but it's just like a secondary service which supports the primary service. And then coming to Disney, it is again just it's just very it's too big to fail. Like they have $1 billion movie coming out every year, and if they release, I'm sure even when they release it on Disney Plus, people are still gonna watch it. And their original shows are, I mean, they have franchises like they have a Marvel franchise, they have a Star Wars franchise, Pixar franchise, even Nat Geo now, right? And now they bought a whole movie studio, and that movie, which is Fox, and that movie studio itself has like so many decades of content. So Disney Plus should be the fan favorite, but Netflix is again the market leader currently. And then yeah, you
I
guys have an
think you know another you know important factor is
yeah.
because so like Disney is a good example for this because they have a bunch of these movie studios, right? And
Hmm.
the pandemic has taught them that you know even if they don't get to release a movie in theaters, they can
Hmm.
still make money out of it by releasing it to their streaming services and having people you know watch it that way. Or maybe you know I think what they did with Mulan was they had it be paid for a particular period.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like an additional fee,
yeah.
and then they sort of you know made it free again for the general public, which is sort of what happens with real movies in theaters as well. So
Mm,
that's I don't know what that means for the you know film industry. I think
mm,
it's probably not looking good for them, especially since Disney is acquiring companies left and right. uh,
yeah,
Maybe in the near future, you know, watching movies in the theater is going to be a thing of the past, especially since
yeah.
you know we've all got like really nice
But
TVs and
again, like depends on what movie you're also releasing, right? Like let's say it's it's not like okay, I would say there are two types of movies. One is like uh mythological or like an event kind of a movie, like let's say
fictional.
uh,
You mean?
fictional, yeah. Like uh, the which one movie is coming out? I think it yeah, Godzilla versus Kong, like that, or like let's say it's a Marvel movie. So I think these are event type of movies, and people want to watch these movies in like the biggest screen possible. But on the other hand, there are smaller budget movies, and it would be okay if the smaller budget movie would also would can just directly go to the platform because I mean, if the price of ticket is the same for like let's say 200 rupees or for a Marvel movie and for a small budget movie, you can guess what people will opt for. Correct. So I think theaters would still continue to be there, but the movies which will be released in theaters that might be rethinked. Can be you can rethink on that.
Yeah. The other factor there is though, um, can the movie theaters and the film industry survive without you know the big screen releases? Because I know so I don't know if you've heard of this, but like Netflix had a plan of introducing the a feature where you can essentially speed up the content, right? 1.5x, 2x,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have like 40 minutes, you want to
mm,
finish an episode in 20 minutes, and you just want to get the gist. You might watch it in 2x. And they got significant pushback from the film industry and the entertainment industry, essentially, because they have more of a traditional outlook towards content consumption.
mm,
They want people to view it as they imagined it on the big screen in like
mm,
actual film, right? Instead of you know people like Netflix tampering with their content and messing with their vision of what it should be. So
mm.
again, it's a complicated state of affairs right now. Um, a lot of parties with their horses in the race. It's just, I guess, the pandemic has been unpredictable for everyone. So we'll just have to see who comes out uh, still surviving.
Yeah. All right then. So basically, we don't know who will come out, which streaming service will come out on the top, but we do know that theaters will struggle a bit. That was a good episode. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.